Here's what's coming up on the program today. Britain and France agree to work together to address the issue of migrants crossing the treacherous English Channel after 31 people drowned on Wednesday. Ukraine warns Russia against any attack. Plus, huge explosions hit the Somali capital, Mogadishu, killing at least 8 people. A warm welcome today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. We begin with developments from last night's report of at least 31 people drowning off the coast of Calais after a boat carrying migrants capsized on the English Channel. Leaders and lawmakers in France and the UK have been commenting on the issue, calling for new laws preventing human trafficking, especially along that route. The latest is the UK's Home Secretary, Priti Patel, who says there is need to intensify cooperation with France, including on sharing of intelligence. She says she has renewed the UK's offer to her French neighbour to strike a returns agreement to replace the EU-wide Dublin regulation, which the with the UK left after Brexit.
On a much wider scale, the European Union's Home Affairs Commissioner, Ylva Johansson, describes the death as a tragedy. During a news conference today, she said it was extremely important to prevent people making the treacherous journey in the first place. French President Emmanuel Macron also backed the call for a stronger European cooperation, as France is a transit country. During a press conference earlier, he said there will be a series of meetings with the Interior Minister in the coming hours and days to better prevent arrivals on French soil from the southern routes, as well as the northern and eastern routes, and to better involve the British in the prevention of those influxes by dismantling smuggler networks. France and Britain have traded blame since 31 people died after the dinghy capsized while crossing the English Channel from France to Britain, and the worst disaster in record involving migrants in the waters separating the countries. The Channel is one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, and currents are strong. Overloaded dinghies often barely stay afloat and are at the mercy of waves as they try to reach British shores. The casualties from Wednesday included 5 women and 1 girl. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he was appalled by the deaths.
I just want to say that I'm shocked and appalled and deeply saddened by the loss of life at sea in the Channel. I think that the details are still coming in, but more than 20 people have lost their lives, as you know. And my thoughts and sympathies are, first of all, with the victims and their families. And it's an appalling thing that they have suffered.
The number of migrants attempting the Channel has jumped in recent months after the British and French governments clamped down on other forms of illegal entry, such as hiding in the back of trucks crossing from ports in France. More migrants left France's northern shores than usual on Wednesday to take advantage of a calm sea conditions, according to fishermen, although the water was bitterly cold.
In the meantime, take a look at this video released by the Polish border guard showing Belarusian border guards standing near the border fence. There it is, shining lasers and flashlights at the Polish side. A group of around 200 migrants tried to break through the fence on the Polish-Belarus border on Wednesday. The border guard said today that tensions simmer in a crisis regional powers have warned could spill into a wider conflict. The incident near the village of Cheremicha was one of the daily confrontations between groups of migrants under the supervision of Belarusian soldiers and Polish forces, which the European Union says is part of a hybrid war Minsk designed to destabilize the bloc and hit back against sanctions, an allegation Minsk denies. Polish officials accuse Belarusian border guards of trying to blind Polish forces with strobe lights and lasers, standing by as migrants attempt to cross the border. In other stories, just as Russia expects to strike a deal on gas supplies to Serbia, the President Vladimir Putin has expressed his condolences to families of victims of a deadly accident at a Siberian mine, during his meeting with his Siberian counterpart Alexander Vucic. President Putin said he hoped as many people would be saved. The death toll after a fire at a Siberian coal mine has risen to 11, according to the regional governor, with dozens still trapped inside. More than 200 people have already been saved from the mine. Now, a friend here and a potential enemy there. Russia's other neighbor, Ukraine, has warned against an attack, saying that Russia, which is building up its forces around Ukrainian borders, must understand that a new attack on its neighbor would be too costly. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba gave a warning today in a television broadcast. He says the main goal is to restrain Russia from further aggressive actions. To do this, he says, Moscow must clearly understand what political, economic and human losses will incur in the event of a new stage of aggression. Meanwhile, outgoing German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the European Union must be prepared to enact more sanctions against Russia if the situation around eastern Ukraine on the Belarus-Poland border escalates. She said the EU has to be united on the issue of Belarus's weaponization of migrants against Poland and Russia's deployment of troops to near its border with Ukraine. In the meantime, the European Union says residents in the EU will need to have COVID-19 vaccine booster jabs if they want to travel to another country in the bloc next summer, free of tests or quarantines. A commission is also proposing accepting all vaccines approved by the World Health Organization for travel purposes, which would allow non-essential travel to the EU from outside the bloc for people vaccinated with Chinese shots and vaccines made in India. The Commission wants to harmonize rules across the 27 EU nations to allow free movement, a cornerstone of the European Union, but is facing new restrictions as cases break records in Europe and many EU countries roll out booster doses. Here's a global update. Germany has ramped up its COVID-19 measures after the total number of coronavirus-related deaths in the country soared over 100,000 on Wednesday. According to the latest data released by Germany's disease control agency, daily new cases also hit a new record of 75,961 over the past 24 hours. Passengers who wish to use public transport are now required to show proof that they are vaccinated, recovered from COVID-19, or have taken a negative test in the past 24 hours. Slovakia has entered a 2-week lockdown as the country with one of the EU's lowest vaccination rates reports a critical situation in hospitals and new infections topping global tables. Slovakia, a country of 5.5 million people, had ordered all but essential shops and services closed and banned people from traveling outside their districts unless going to work, school or a doctor. Gatherings of more than 6 people are also banned. France will make COVID-19 booster jabs available to all adults over the age of 18 from Saturday and reduce the gap from the last jab to 5 months, ruling out curfews and lockdowns to curb a 5th wave of infections. The country's health minister says from January 15th, booster shots will become a requirement for a valid health pass, which is required in France to enter restaurants, cafes, cinemas and museums, among other public venues. Finally, the EU's drug regulator has approved the use of Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for children between the ages of 5 and 11, paving the way for them to be given a first shot as Europe battles a surge in infections. Pfizer-BioNTech's vaccine, which has been approved for European Union use in teenagers between 12 and 17 years since May, will be given in 2 doses. The approval comes as Europe is again the epicenter of the pandemic, again accounting for about half of cases and deaths. Staying in Europe, earlier today, the Nigerian High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Ambassador Sarafa Tunji Ishola, presented his letter of credentials to Her Majesty the Queen at Buckingham Palace to solidify his appointment. These pictures here are from the morning's ceremonial departure. On the sidelines of the event, he spoke with our London correspondent, Juliana Olaika, about the importance of Nigeria's relationship with Britain post-Brexit. The ambassador also spoke about the extensive work the UK mission is doing to clear a huge backlog of passport applications from Nigerians residing in the country.
Nigerian-UK ties at this time, it's something that we need to improve drastically upon. But the window of opportunity that we have now, which we are exploring, is the issue of Brexit. Because with Brexit, Britain would have to focus on the African partners. And if you look at the meeting of the G20 that was held recently, the focus is Africa. Because when you're talking of Africa, number one is Nigeria. I need to tell you, with the projection of the World Bank, the remittance for this year is put at $17.6 billion for Nigeria alone. And the rest, 12 other countries that receive remittances all over Africa, is also the same equivalent amount. So when we say Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, that is no exaggeration. As at today, I'm happy to say that we have not only cleared the 18,000 backlog, we have done additional 24,085. So within this period, we've been able to issue passports to 42,085 applicants in the last 6 or 7 months. And we only have just a backlog of 4,069 as of today. And the good news there is that just Friday night, the application portal for the e-passport has been shut down because we are transiting to enhanced e-passport, which provides opportunity for Nigerians in the UK to either have a 32-page 5-year passport or a 64-page 5-year passport for frequent traveler, or a 64-page 10-year passport. So this will create the windows of opportunity for Nigerians. And with the backlog of 4,000 plus, which was as at shut down of the portal, we still have a backlog. We hope that in the next 3 months, we should be able to clear the backlog and fully transit to the enhanced passport.
Nigeria's ambassador or high commissioner, beg your pardon, to the UK. 7 students have been injured in an explosion that resulted in when a suicide bomber blew himself up in the Somali capital, Mogadishu. The director of Makassar School, Yusuf Hussein, confirmed the number, which had initially been put at 13. He said some classrooms were destroyed in the explosion. Police sources said 8 people had died in the explosion. The bomb was targeting a UN convoy. It's not clear if any personnel were among those killed or injured. Okay, let's turn to Ethiopia now. Olympic gold medalist and national hero Haile Gebrselassie pledged on Wednesday to join the fight against rebellious forces in his country after the Prime Minister said he had gone to direct the war from the front lines. A 48-year-old retired champion who set 27 long-distance running records says he felt compelled to join because Ethiopia's existence was under threat. Also lending his voice to what's going on in Ethiopia is the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, who called for an end to fighting in Ethiopia. He is in Colombia at the moment, urging Ethiopian leaders to follow the Andean country's example of peace. During a press conference later with Colombian President Ivan Duque, Mr. Guterres said the peace process in Colombia today inspires him to make an urgent call to the protagonists of the conflict in Ethiopia for an unconditional an immediate ceasefire. And then tens of thousands of residents in Addis Ababa have signed up for defense groups after rebellious Tigrayan forces threatened to march on the capital. We're looking at volunteers, among them tens of thousands of them who joined such groups after Tigrayan forces threatened to march on the Ethiopian capital. They're dressed in bright orange vests, searching pedestrians and cars for weapons and suspects. Tigrayan forces have recaptured most of Tigray and pushed into neighboring regions, prompting Prime Minister Abiy to declare a 6-month state of emergency. It allows suspects to be detained without trial for the length of the proclamation and house-to-house searches without warrants. Some Tigrayans say they are being unfairly targeted because of their ethnicity. Thousands have been arrested in several ways since the war began. Ethiopian police say they're detaining suspected TPLF operatives. Let's talk more about what's going on in the country. Joining me now is Malet Bayecha. She's the founder and host Connect Africa on YouTube. Malet, thank you for joining me on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Amarachi.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has once called for citizens to take up arms to fight the Tigrayan rebels headed to the capital, Addis Ababa. He's also said he could go to the front, to the battlefront. He said he's actually there. This is clearly a call for war in the country. What do you think?
Well, thank you for that question. I think we have to see it, historically, what Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is not something new. If we see the Ethiopian history, if we start, for example, from Menelik II, he has called his people different governors of the regions in the country when there is the Battle of Adwa. The same thing with Empress Taitu. The Empress and the kings will call their peoples and then they go to the forefront at the battle place itself. So this has been practiced also down to His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, and also as recent as Mengistu Haile Mariam, who was when we were under a communist party. So now Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed doing that is not something new, per se for Ethiopians. And also this sense, I think, it demonstrates normally what we see. The normal trend in Africa is, when there's a conflict, the non-African states meddle or the previous colonial powers meddle in the affairs of the country, and then they have a way to evacuate leaders and then put a leader or a rebel leader or whatever, which is kind of who can obey or, who can do what they say from Europe or from US. So this sends that message. This government is there to protect its people. Let's not forget also Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali has got a Nobel Prize for Peace, which, most of the Western media is trying to defame him. Now he's as a man of war. But this sends message also, okay, he has got a Nobel Peace Prize, but he doesn't stop there. He also, if needs to be, he is determined to protect his people, the sovereignty of his country, and that includes the people of Tigray as well.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like, he really wants to protect the Tigrayan people. He's fighting against rebels, okay? And the Tigrayans say they feel that they're being targeted. But now there are calls for peace coming from international governments, including some in Africa. We've heard from the Kenyan president, who I think is the latest African leader to actually call for peace in Ethiopia. And now the UN Secretary General, who's said so before, once again calling for an immediate end to the fighting in Ethiopia. What do you make of this?
Well, peace is a very legitimate call, but what we have to know is it takes two, to make peace, as it takes two to make war. So what I can say is the Ethiopian government from the beginning has been consistent, even from the time of when we have the Grand Renaissance Dam problem. Whenever we try to fill the dam, there was a lot of meddlers, non-African states. So the Ethiopian government stance, even from that time, was African solutions to African problems. So it's under that principle that it welcomed, or Ethiopia welcomed, the initiative by the African Union, and this initiative led by the former president, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo. So that's happening right now. So the non-African states, that meddling is not welcome, and we have seen a lot of things that are happening because of the one-sided biased war. So Ethiopia has just, to stick to your question, has welcomed the AU initiative, and it's still there working, doing what the former President Obasanjo is doing.
I'm hearing you say Ethiopia, well, we should have African solutions to African problems. So indirectly, we should have Ethiopian solutions to Ethiopia's problems. What would you suggest as a solution to Ethiopia's problems at the moment?
Well, let's not forget that, what we have here is, it's whether we like it or not, Abiy Ahmed Ali, he is the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and he has been elected so democratically. People have voted for him. So, if anyone has to disarm, logically, I think any sovereign state will agree to this. So, if anyone has to disarm right now, it is TPLF, the Ethiopian National Defense Force. It is a national force. So the TPLF has to disarm itself and live. The people have lived together. It's not a war between, the people of Tigray and the rest of Ethiopians. So I think TPLF has to disarm itself, and the war is now, it has expanded to, as you said before, to the next regions, still within Ethiopia, to Amhara and Afar. So that has to be stopped, and then it has to disarm. I mean, it's not only hurting other people, outside of Tigray, it's also hurting and destroying Tigray itself, the people of Tigray itself. There's a lot of soldiers that are, child soldiers recruitment. So I think, TPLF has to disarm and, come to
Malet, thank you for your views. But, as international governments and international bodies have established, there have been atrocities committed on both sides. So, again, there's still a lot we need to learn from Ethiopia, and very few information coming out of the country. Thank you again for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
And as we close, the Gingerbread Berlin Wall and Central Perk Cafe from the television series Friends are on show at the annual Christmas baking competition in Stockholm, which this year has a theme, Together. Now in its 31st year, the competition in Sweden's National Center for Architecture and Design has attracted 130 fragrant entries. A theme was illustrated in many ways, from animals on Noah's Ark, people gathering at the fall of the Berlin Wall, friends meeting in Central Park in New York City, to people baking together. Winners in the 5 categories: architects, designers, bakers, and up to 12, and all others who bake, will be announced on December 19, and the tasty exhibition runs until January 9th.
Well, it's very creative, and I think that people have interpreted in different ways, but one thing you can see, it's to be together with family and friends. And I think a lot of people also have baked together, so that concept you can see also in their creations. And it's a lot of to be together throughout the world as well, togetherness, people helping each other and be a part of one world. So this is a really nice work. It's the Berlin Wall that fell in 1989, and it's on the team Together. So here you can see people meeting again after being separated, and I think it's a nice interpretation of the team, and also a connection to today and people meeting again after being away from each other.
A lot of people were away from each other during the pandemic. We'll be looking forward to meeting together again during the Christmas celebrations. Thanks again for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.